Let's talk sous vide. This little guy promises restaurant quality food only a world-class top chef can make. But does it really replace the traditional pot and pan cooking, or is it all hype? In this video, I'm going to review the sous vide and whether or not you should invest in one. Let's dive in. I remember a few years back, there was a lot of hype regarding this machine and basically everybody was running out and getting one. So as you guys know, I love to cook and I love the traditional pot and pan cooking. I love barbecuing. I love baking. Basically anything that revolves around food, me making it and then eating it, I'm down to try. Most of you guys will know that I'm a huge cast iron, carbon steel, stainless steel fan. And if you haven't already, go check out my video where I reviewed the 3 different pans and gave you guys the pros and cons of each one. And buying a sous vide for me originally was kind of a big question mark, because this little machine basically revolved around vacuum sealing your food or putting your food in a plastic bag and then dumping it in water for a couple of hours. I'm not saying that I didn't believe in the technology. The technology has been around for a long time, but it just seemed really boring. And I was really interested in the sous vide for 2 reasons. One, for the convenience. The second reason is the hype. I'll admit it, I was drawn to this machine because of the hype. Anyways, long story short, I decided to buy one. I bought this a couple of years ago and it's seen some heavy use. I don't really clean it too often. I beat the heck out of it. I still have the protective film on here. I never took it off. For me personally, the 2 leading brands for sous vide is the Anova and the Joule. So if you guys are interested in a sous vide in an Anova model, I'll link the equivalent down below in the comments. I want to go over more details about the sous vide and this particular model and just go over the pros and cons, give you guys basic features and builds, and then at the end of it, I'll give you guys my final thoughts. Okay, now let's talk about build and features. So, like I said, this is the 900 watt version. It's made by Anova. It has been discontinued, but Anova does have the new iteration of this. I think I originally paid during Prime Day about $120 for this, which was a steal. I read a bunch of reviews of people having trouble with the Wi-Fi. I can tell you that I've never had a single issue with the Wi-Fi capabilities of this machine. It has worked perfectly. I like that it had a touch screen and a dial. The one thing that I didn't like about the Joule model was that it had no physical buttons or a screen. It was completely controlled by the app. There's pros and cons to that, but I didn't want that. I wanted to, if I was home, I can just set it real quick and move on. And if I was away, I can use the app and cook from there. And it just was more versatile. Like, I'd rather have the feature and not need it than to need it and not have it. So that's what really drew me to the Anova. The second reason why I picked the Anova was because Anova had a really good reputation at the time and Joule was just starting off. Now I can tell you today, Joule and Anova are the 2 leading consumer household sous vides. Of course, there's industrial level ones and restaurant quality ones, but we're trying to keep it under $200. So that's why I highly recommend the Joule and the Anova. I think for under $200, you can't go wrong with either one. This particular model heats up the water fairly quickly, and I've never had any reliability issues. I've never really thoroughly cleaned it. I know that there's like maintenance that you have to do, but for the last 2 years, there hasn't been a single issue. I see a lot of calcium deposits in here. Yeah, this thing has been abused and it's never missed a beat. And based on the reviews for the Joule, sounds like Joule's the same exact way. So what do you get when you buy an Anova? What do you get when you buy a Joule? They both have Wi-Fi capabilities. Well, if you buy an Anova with Wi-Fi capabilities, and you get an amazing app. The Anova app was really thorough. You get all these fantastic recipes, whether it's steak or chicken or lobster or even ribs. You can do some ribs on this bad boy. As far as features goes, I mean, that's basically it. It comes with this stand right here. It's not too heavy. Feels like it's a solid tank. There's some plastic, but it's hard. The actual material that's going to be soaked in the water is pretty good. I don't feel like anything was cheaply made. Okay, now I did want to talk about must-buy accessories, things that you should really add to your cart when you buy a sous vide machine. The first thing is a container. The container is very important. You want to get something that's hard plastics, that's rated at, high temperatures, because you can get pretty hot with this machine. If you're cooking chicken, for example, you're upwards of 165 degrees Fahrenheit or plus. A lot of people make the mistake of buying a container but not buying a lid. I highly recommend that you buy a lid for the container that has the cutout for the sous vide, because the lid keeps everything efficient and consistent, keeps the temperatures in, right? You don't want the temperatures to escape. You don't want that heat to escape. And it also helps you get up to operating temperature quickly, because this thing has to heat up the water to whatever it is that you're trying to cook, and then it has to maintain that temperature. So the lid really helps with that. The next thing that I recommend is getting a sous vide rack. And what the rack does is it helps you kind of section out your meals, but also holds them down and prevents them from floating up. So you always want your food submerged. What a rack does is it makes sure that everything is submerged, but it also organizes things, especially if you're cooking a lot of food. So I highly recommend a rack. And then the next thing that you should really think about is, how are you going to enclose that food? Are you going to vacuum seal the food that you're trying to cook? Are you just going to use a Ziploc bag and dump it in there? I know there's people that do that and then they clip on the bag to the side of the container. I don't recommend that. I personally use a vacuum sealer. I own a vacuum sealer. I'm a huge fan of vacuum sealing, and I usually buy my meat in bulk, and then we vacuum seal everything and throw it in the freezer. We have plenty of food for at least a month. So, whenever we want to make something, take some meat out and we make our food. I know that not everybody has a vacuum sealer, or maybe they don't want to make that investment because they can be very pricey. But there's another alternative. I've actually found these bags that you can actually vacuum seal with a hand pump, and they work really, really well. I haven't had any leaks. They're rated for sous vide. I'll put a link below, and I think you get a lot of bags for your money. I think it was like 25 bucks. You get the vacuum pump, you get this little thing to help you seal the bags or close them better. And then I think you get 3 different size bags. You get a large, a medium, and a small. And honestly, they've worked out great. The only issue with reusable bags, these are reusable bags, is that cleaning them, right? I mean, you have to flip them inside out, really clean them thoroughly, and then have a place to dry them. I think my wife usually puts them over a cup or something, just so the bag is expanded and the air is circulating through. But those are really the main things that you need to invest in to really get the most out of your sous vide. And I would say that they are critical. It's not a gimmick. I'm not trying to get you guys to spend money. I really do think they're needed, and they do help you maintain efficient temperatures and make the whole experience a lot better. And just a full disclaimer, I am an Amazon affiliate. When you guys do click on the links or you do buy a product that I am recommending to you, I do get a very small commission, but any commission helps. At the time of this video, I am not monetized, so I don't make a single dime out of these videos. And being an Amazon affiliate kind of gives me something back and makes it possible for me to make all these videos. So I really appreciate you guys supporting the channel, supporting the links, clicking on them and buying the products. It really does go a long way, and I thank you guys. Okay, now, so let's talk about the app in a little bit more detail. Anova has actually been really good regarding updating this app. They do update it quite frequently, and they are adding more and more recipes. I like how everything's very conveniently located. You start your machine from here, you can click on a recipe and just start cooking, and all the information gets sent to your sous vide, like the temperature, the time, whatever it may be, and you're off. So it's a clean app. There's plenty of great pictures, and there's plenty of great ingredients, details, recipes. It's very user-friendly and just well organized. So just going into the details real quickly, you have guides, and when you click on guides, it gives you the category of meat that you want to cook, whether it's beef or fish or vegetables, whatever it may be. And then when you, let's say you click on one, let's say I'm going to click on beef right here. Now you have a huge selection. You have briskets, hamburgers, steaks, ribs, whatever it may be. And let's say, today I'm going to be cooking a ribeye steak. Well, it tells you the recommended temperatures for the thickness that it has on there. If you scroll down, you do have the recipe below where it gives you detailed step-by-steps of the ingredients and how to prepare the meal. I like that a lot, and you can actually like click on every ingredient to, mark off that you've completed it. On the next tab, you have your directions. You can follow step by step exactly what to do. And then it even gives you recommendations for finishing the meal, what you should do, how long you should rest it for, if you should add any salt afterwards, things like that. And then finally, it does have a section that they call About, where it gives you kind of like the background of the meal and where they particularly got, their recipe, their ingredients from. Of course, they also go over timing and temperatures and cooking with sous vide, just general information using a sous vide machine, and how to get you going. If you do register with the app, you can save your favorite recipes, which they put on their favorite tabs, and always reference them and go back to them. Of course, if you hit connect, it gives you the opportunity to select your machine and connect to your particular machine. But once you do that, you can then customize your own meals where you can set your temperatures and your times. Like I said, the general rule of thumb for steaks is every half of an inch cut, you add 30 minutes. If you have an inch, that would be an hour. If you have an inch and a half, that'd be an hour and a half. I heard that the Joule app is even better and more detailed. Now, the cool thing is you can buy either machine and download both apps if you just want the recipes and base it off of that. Obviously, the Joule app won't work with the Anova, and the Anova won't work with the Joule, but you could have both apps, and they're both free for recipe sharing purposes. Okay, so now I wanted to talk about the pros of using a sous vide machine. The very first and probably the biggest pro of sous vide is the convenience. You do not have to be physically present when you're cooking your food. It completely gets rid of all of the guesswork for you. The machine takes over and it cooks your proteins or your vegetables to perfection. I love using this machine for meal prepping, or like I said, if I need to go run some errands, I don't have time to physically be in the kitchen, cooking our meal. I can just vacuum seal the food that I'm trying to cook, either hit go, or if I know that I want to start it at a later time, maybe I'm going to go step out for, an hour or two or go watch a movie. Wherever I'm at, I can use the app, and because it's Wi-Fi, just hit the button and I know that the machine's going to start cooking. By the time I get home, it's ready. And all I have to do is finish it or sear it. That's pretty convenient, but it's not 100% foolproof, right? So for example, if I'm out at work, and let's say I'm out working for 8-9 hours, and I don't have time to make dinner that night. I know I don't. Well, how do you take the food out and vacuum seal it and all that stuff and then dump it in a container of water for 9 hours? I mean, the food will spoil. You don't want to do that. And of course, you don't want to set the machine. Now, the machine will never overcook your food. But the problem with that is you're wasting a lot of electricity and energy, and probably eventually the reliability of the machine may start getting impacted. So how do you do that exactly? Well, for us, if I'm going out to work and let's say my wife's still home, she'll take the food out of the refrigerator and put it in cold water, right? Like not ice cold water, just cold water, dump it in there. And then I know that in the next 2 hours to maybe 3 hours or so, I should start the machine. Right? I mean, yeah, the machine may idle for an hour extra than it needs to, but that's okay. I mean, the food's cooked and wasn't the most energy efficient, but we're okay. Well, if not, let's say I'm coming home from lunch, I know that before I head back out to work, I should set up the machine, put the food in there, get it ready, so at a later time, we can initiate the cook remotely. Now, if both of us are out of the house for 9 hours, we usually don't use it. I know that there's people out there that will freeze their food already seasoned in the bag, ready to go the night before. And then in the mornings, they put it in the container and it thaws in the container. And then they start the sous vide, later in the afternoon when they're heading back home. I don't know. We haven't tried it. Let me know in the comments below. How do you guys set up your cooks when you know you're going to be out for the entire day? Honestly, I'm really curious about the freezing method. Is the quality of the food still good? I'm sure it is. Comment below and let me know. Okay, the next biggest pro, and this is probably equally as important, is it never overcooks your food. I've already kind of touched up on this, but it's true. If the water temperature is 165, your chicken's gonna be 165. There's no way for energy to just come out of nowhere and raise that temperature up, to go past that. Energy can't be created randomly, right? It needs to come from somewhere. That source is from the sous vide machine. So the sous vide machine is maintaining that 165 temperature. Your chicken's at 165. And if it malfunctions or something like that and it shoots up now to 175 because the machine's, short circuited or something, that's not the intended purpose of sous vide. So that would never happen. I love that. I mean, think about that. You can literally set your machine, go out, watch a movie. Oh man, I had a flat tire on the way home and it took me an extra hour to get home. You're good. If you did that in an oven, for example, your food would be burnt and possibly your house. So that's where the sous vide comes in handy. It kind of goes hand in hand with convenience, but it also goes with quality. You can never screw up your food. Now there's a second step. Once you're done with sous vide, you do have to sear your proteins. So if you put it back on the skillet for too long and you overcook it, you can still overdo it. So it's all user error after the sous vide. Once it leaves the sous vide, it's all in your hands. And this goes back to convenience, is the Wi-Fi functionality. You can set this machine anywhere, right? You can be anywhere in the world and set your sous vide. As long as your Wi-Fi network and your phone are all working, you can start cooking literally at any time. What does that mean? Well, I think you should really heavily invest in a Wi-Fi sous vide machine. A Joule or Anova, or if you're looking at another brand, just make sure it's Wi-Fi. Pay the extra money, the extra $20 or whatever. Read the reviews, make sure it's reliable. You don't want to buy something that will never connect to your network. And that's why I recommend the Anova and the Joule so much, because I know that they work. I've never had an issue with mine. And I really do think the Wi-Fi capabilities, the Wi-Fi functionality is just worth it. Even if you're at home. You could be like mowing the lawn and start the food, right? You could be taking a shower and start the food. And for you parents out there, you know how hectic your day could be. You could be running around with your kids or trying to, get the house cleaned up or whatever it may be. Even if you know that you're gonna be home, there might be a party coming and you're having a dinner party and you just can't get to it. You can start it with your app. The Wi-Fi functionality is just an extra feature that makes everything so convenient. Highly recommend the Wi-Fi, and that's another big pro. The final pro, and this is kind of particular to the Anova, I love the app. I love the build quality. It's been 2.5 years. I'm sure this thing's gonna keep going. Anova has great customer service, and I gotta say, that's a huge pro to me as well. Okay, now let's talk about the cons. The first con is it's a little bit slow. You need time to cook your meals. I'll give you an example. If I'm gonna cook a ribeye and I'm gonna pan sear it or I'm gonna put it on the barbecue, that ribeye, depending on the thickness, the size, all that stuff, yada, 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 is gonna be done in under 20 minutes. With a sous vide, if it's an inch thick, it's gonna be an hour. That's kind of counterintuitive to the convenience, right? If you're really hungry and you really want food right now, the sous vide machine is probably not the best machine for you. If you know you can multitask, which I know most of us can, and you're gonna be doing something else and cooking your food at the same time without needing to watch it, sous vide's perfect for you. Okay, so in other words, what I'm trying to say is it's not instant. Your food won't be cooked instantly. Actually, nothing is, but as far as like other methods go, sous vides are relatively slow. The next biggest con is you will need to buy additional accessories to really get started and make the most out of your sous vide. Now, I don't care what the manufacturer tells you. They'll show you videos of people clipping their sous vide on a pot and then like clipping their bag of food and, hoping everything goes well. Yes, you can do it that way, but it's a bit janky and you're really not being very efficient. Remember, the most important thing with sous vide is be efficient. Make your life easier. I think you need some accessories. For example, you need to invest in bags. I highly recommend reusable bags. You really want to try to save the environment. We don't want to be throwing plastic bags out every day using a sous vide machine. If If you do go into the reusable bag method, the hand pump method that I recommend in this video, that's a great solution. Otherwise, you gotta vacuum seal. The big negative thing with vacuum sealing is, the bags, they're waste. You gotta throw those away. You should really consider recycling the bags or figuring out a way to recycle them, or just using renewable bags, something that you can reuse from time to time. But you're gonna have to invest in bags, you're gonna have to invest in the lid, you're going to have to pay more to really get the most out of this machine. And the machines are already pretty expensive, so that's a big con. The next biggest con is the machines can be a bit energy hungry. And what I mean by that is, if you are using them day in, day out, if you do forget to come back home on time, those things are running for hours and hours and hours. I actually decided to do some beef ribs, and one of the recipes I was following was to sous vide your ribs overnight, right, for 12 hours. Actually, I think it was a day, 24 hours. And I did see a bit of a tick in my energy bill, so that's something to consider. And I know the Joule, I believe, is also pretty energy hungry. They both are. I mean, the Anova or the Joule, whatever it is that you might end up using, they may be a little better than one another, but they're still an electric device. So consider your electric bill when you do buy the sous vide. That's all I'm saying. The next con, and probably the last con that I can think of, the food's not finished after you've sous vide. You have to sear it in some way or some form, whether that's putting it on the skillet or lighting up your barbecue and searing it on the grill real quick, or even using a flamethrower. I prefer the flamethrower method. Again, everything for me is convenience. I don't want to have to wash my pans afterwards. I just want to be able to sear it real quickly and move on. I'll put a link below of the tools that I use. There's a couple different ones that you can buy. I mean, you can literally go to Home Depot and buy like a gigantic one that will literally char your food, or there's some other more convenient ones that you can buy. That's another thing that you have to invest in. That's another cost. And I just want to make sure that you guys know that the food's not done after sous vide. You still have to sear it. Okay, so how do you use a sous vide? It's just like anything else. You want to season your food. Both sides, all sides, make sure you do that. If you have a steak, season the top, the bottom, and the sides. Salt, pepper, thyme, garlic powder, whatever it is that you may want to use. I highly recommend with sous vide, try to utilize actual plants for your spices, right? Like if you're gonna use garlic, don't use garlic powder, get some garlic cloves, throw them in there, smash them. If you want to use thyme or rosemary, try to get the actual plant, cut it, throw it in there, rather than using the dried thyme and rosemary that you would get from a spice bottle. It's just going to give you a burst of flavor. And then everything that you want, put it in a bag, either vacuum seal it or use a reusable bag and use the pump to get all the air out. You want to do that because that's going to help the bag sink. And it's just, you won't have any air pockets. It makes everything much more efficient. And then I highly recommend you use a rack, put the rack in the container, put the foods in the sectioned out rack, keeps everything nicely organized, especially if you have a family and you have more food that you want to cook. And then fill up your container. Just fill it up with the regular tap water, at regular temperature, whatever that may be. If you wanted to, you can go, lukewarm. You don't necessarily have to go hot water or something like that. Just let the sous vide do its thing. I don't think you're saving too much time by, adding hot water initially. Put the lid on and start your sous vide, whether that's by hand or remotely. Wait for the minimum recommended time, whether that's an hour, 2 hours, whatever it may be, depending on the food that you're cooking, and then you're good. But remember, if you go over that time, it's okay. You're not gonna overcook your meals. You're just at that point, it's just redundant and you're wasting energy, right? When the food's done from the sous vide, take it out, cut open the bag. There's gonna be juices in there. Don't worry, that's not water that got leaked into the bag. That's just the natural juices of the food. Literally, the food was cooking in its own juices. That's how great sous vide is. So you have the maximum amount of flavor. You can do whatever you want with that juice. You can make a broth out of it. You can save it, drink it, whatever you want to do. Don't drink it. But you have the juices as an extra bonus for the next meal or the next spice or whatever it is that you're going to be doing. And now it's time to consider how you're going to sear the food. Whether it's vegetables or proteins, whatever it may be, you have to sear it. If you are going to use the torch, it's super important. There's a blue flame and then you have your actual fire. You never want to sear your food close to that blue flame. You want to stay away from that from that blue flame. That flame is where the chemicals are. That's where the gas is. So you don't want that. You're gonna get a taste of like this propane-y, like chemical taste in your food. It's not very good. Always sear at the bottom of the flame, the hot part. The part that looks like fire and not like you're trying to weld something. That's the portion that you want to use to sear your food. And make sure you're constantly moving. If you stay in one spot, that torch is really hot. It's going to char and burn that portion of the food. Okay, my final thoughts. So like I said earlier in this video, this is completely subjective. It's whether or not this machine is right for you, for your particular case, right? Whether it's for the convenience, or maybe you're a terrible cook and you just can't get it right and you gave up on cooking and you want to use a sous vide so you can get that pro restaurant quality taste. I'm not judging, it's completely up to you. I love cooking. I love the traditional pot and pan cooking. I don't think a sous vide machine will ever replace that for me. There's something about having the pots and pans and that hectic environment where everything is moving in this fluid motion at once. I know that sounds crazy, but I really enjoy that. I like having my steaks on one burner and sauteing some mushrooms and onions with garlic on another burner and boiling some mashed potatoes all at once. And even though with the sous vide, the quality is amazing and you're making top restaurant quality food, it will never replace that chaotic environment that I love so much. So, is a sous vide worth it? Well, that's something that you have to decide for your situation. But what I can tell you is they're built like tanks. They do make excellent quality food. You will never overcook your meals and you will have restaurant quality top chef food. But for me, a sous vide buys me time when I know I don't have any. Other than that, I love the traditional chaotic environment of pot and pan cooking or barbecue grilling. That's it for me, guys. I hope you found this video informative and I will catch you guys on the next one. Take care, everybody. Hey everybody, how'd you guys like that last video? Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you get notified on my next video. And if you can, please share with your family and friends. I would really appreciate it. Here's some more content that I think you guys are really gonna enjoy. Check them out. As always, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Take care.